The job of a parent is never ending, always changing. And while we get through the infant stage, the toddler stage, the grade school and middle school stage, and we think, you know what, it's got to ease up here soon. The truth is, when we get to the teenage years, it gets harder in a lot of ways. Just like every season of being a parent, it also gets so awesome because it gets so new and so different. But one of the things that is hitting our teenagers, and honestly, unfortunately, it's hitting our grade schoolers and our middle schoolers as well at unheard of rates, is anxiety and mental, emotional health challenges, anxiety, depression, emotional dysregulation, flat out exhaustion, and just looking at our teens and looking at our kids and just knowing something's not right. Now, the truth is, this has been a problem for some time. We know that our teenagers go through a lot of different changes, from their nervous system to their hormones to how their brain and body function. And we know that they go through a lot of challenges. School gets way harder. College and life on their own is upcoming. Friends and social circles can become so hard to navigate. And now today, we are really stuck in the thick of the storm. There's another ingredient to the perfect storm, if you will, called technology, smartphones, and social media, and just this 24/7, 365. And they'd probably plug in more if we let them, just addiction to technology, to the internet, and so forth. But the truth is, as far back as 2011, we've seen anxiety rates absolutely explode. They've doubled in that time. And then they grew again massively during the COVID lockdowns, where they took away, even though our kids weren't at risk from the challenge that was all over the news and everything else, they took them away from so many things that are essential to their well-being. So we saw another spike in anxiety, depression, suicide rates during those years. So right now, today, we are up against it. The CDC reports that 44%, so almost half of our high schoolers, report persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness, and 1 in 3 teenage girls have seriously contemplated suicide, twice the rate of boys. I have a whole bunch more statistics here on my notes that I could go through with this video and go through with this message, and I don't really want to. What I want to do with this video is to get deeper into the conversation than medical doctors, psychologists, counselors, and perhaps even those in the awesome natural health, drug-free space go into when they talk about diet changes or detoxes or fitness. We know those things are essential. We also know that our kids tend to eat like crap when they are a teenager. We know that our teens, especially if they're not involved maybe in youth sports and so forth, they tend to become way too locked inside, sedentary, and then stuck on the phone. It all kind of comes together. So there's a lot of very basic things we can do to get our teens and our young ones healthy again. But what if you've already tried those? What if your teen is so dysregulated, so out of balance, so anxious, so depressed, and so exhausted that even kind of the basics of good health, getting good sleep, being physically active, getting outside, going to hang out with friends, being communicative and social, what if those basics, you can't get your teen to get even jump started because they're so exhausted? Now, what about this too? What if you've tried medications? What if your child has struggled so much that you needed to just help get their head above water and tried anxiety medications, tried these different psychoactive, psychotropic medications, and maybe they awesomely helped symptomatically? Maybe some of the symptoms that your child is going through are a little bit or a lot of bit better with medication. But those come with so many side effects, and they also come with such a risk of dependency. Is that really what our kids need to be healthy and happy and vibrant? Is a dependency and an addiction to the pharmaceutical industry? We know that those medications symptomatically can make some improvements, but we also know they come with both short and long-term side effect profiles and lots of risk. And the truth is, what we really want to break down with this message is the chemical imbalance theory that the traditional medical system, and really therefore, because they've marketed it to us and sold it to us, that, hey, anxiety, chemical imbalance, depression, and chemical imbalance, ADHD, chemical imbalance. So they've told us that our kids' brains and our brains work on whether we're happy and not anxious or not based upon these chemicals, the serotonins, the dopamines, and so forth. But let's dive deeper into those chemicals. Is the human brain and nervous system really dependent upon chemistry, Or is it more dependent upon the balance, the function, the regulation of the nervous system? See, those chemicals that they talk about within this chemical imbalance theory, which once you open the hood and you actually look at the research and the science on the chemical imbalance theory, the gig is up. It's not solid at all. It is very loosely constructed scientifically. And so many studies have shown that so many basic things like going out for a walk and just doing some really simple things absolutely beat the pants off so many of these medications. But those are not the clinical trials. Those are not the studies that you will hear in the doctor's office, because the doctor's office doesn't have a gym and a nutritional and a nervous system focused chiropractic component to it. The doctor's office is the direct portal to the pharmaceutical industry. So the only studies you're ever going to hear about are the ones that support their theory and sell their product. Now you're thinking, goodness gracious, that's how these natural health, nervous system focused chiropractors and they're going to take this hardline angle to it. No, like every single one of our messages, this is a very steeped in the latest. Here's the truth about the science. Here's how, and even more importantly than research, here's what we know about how neurophysiology and the human and teenager brain and body really works. And then even more importantly, here's what parents want today. Us, as this generation of parents, we understand that we want our kids to be healthy. We want them to not be anxious. We want them to not be depressed. We want them to be happy and thriving and in a good place. And we definitely do not want to rely on medications full of side effects and addictiveness to get there, okay? So we're not having a controversial conversation. We're having a scientific practice and parent-based experience conversation that says this chemical imbalance theory isn't all it's cracked up to be. So what's deeper than that? What goes below that? And so with the rest of this, I really want to break down the science for you as to what's really triggering anxiety, exhaustion, depression within your child's brain and nervous system. And that's actually where the answer lies, right smack in the center. The central and autonomic nervous system are the system that those chemicals, the serotonin, the dopamine, the hormones, the neurotransmitters, it's literally in the word neurotransmitter. Those chemicals simply transmit messages for the nervous system. So what we know is that our kids are exposed to more stress. And yes, that's a simple catch-all word, and we want this message to be simple. Our kids are more stuck in sympathetic fight or flight stress mode than any generation of kids have ever been. Their sympathetic fight or flight side of the nervous system is so running on overdrive throughout most of childhood. In fact, we can go back to what we call the perfect storm. Many of our teens, when we go deep into their case history, it was a high stress fertility and pregnancy journey. There's actually connections to anxiety and mental emotional challenges later on in life, as far back as the fertility and pregnancy, what's called the fetal development, when the brain and the nervous system were first developing. There's also strong clinical connections and scientific connections to birth trauma, birth interventions, forceps, vacuum, C-section, induction, injuring the brainstem physically, which is where so much of our nervous system balance and function or imbalance and dysfunction and dysregulation is coordinated by something called the vagus nerve and the brainstem, and we'll break that down here in a second as well. And then our kids are exposed to more toxins, more medications, more antibiotics, more corticosteroids, more over-the-counter medications, more toxins in our food, our diet, our environment than ever before. And those toxins get into the body, and guess what they do? They mimic a sympathetic fight or flight, anxiety-inducing effect. And then you add in the fourth component of the perfect storm, which is really hits teenagers once they get a smartphone. And that is the addiction to technology and the constant stimulation, overstimulation, and disconnection from what's actually healthy and good for the brain once they're stuck on the phone for even a few hours a day. And is it absolutely atrocious that our schools don't even take our kids' phones away? Yes, right now, that's a big issue. And thankfully, the science we're breaking down in this message is out there. And people and schools and different states and different districts are finally waking up and saying, if we really truly care about our teens, and we really want them to be healthy, we really want them to thrive, not just in school, but socially, emotionally, physically, physiologically, we got to take those dang phones away, at least give them breaks so their brain and nervous system can connect to what is healthy, what does regulate it, what does create balance. So we can go all the way back to long before they actually become a middle schooler, grade schooler, teenager, and the stressors and the pressures that come with that. And what we know when we break into the science and the case history of kids struggling with anxiety and depression is that they've been heading towards this imbalance and heading towards this challenge for quite some time, because nerves that fire together are wired together. So that if they were a toddler who was wound up and impulsive all the time, if they had focus and hyperactivity challenges in school, if they had sensory overwhelm and sensory challenges as we go along, if they were sick a lot, they have gut issues and immune and inflammatory autoimmune challenges, that all disrupts brain function as well and nervous system function. And all of this adds up to these absolutely exploding rates of anxiety and depression in our teens. So the actual foundation and the root cause of anxiety and depression is an imbalance, dysfunction, and dysregulation within the nervous system. Another nerdy term, two more nerdy things we want to sneak into this one that really parents of teens need to know about. And again, don't be worried by the nerd terms here coming up. I'll teach them in a very simple and easy to understand way. But there's another term called dysautonomia. Now, dysautonomia is also at play with another condition that is exploding in our teens called POTS. And POTS and anxiety and depression, all of this is linked together. So dysautonomia also then involves what's called the vagus nerve. Dysautonomia is the catch-all nerd term that says, okay, the entire autonomic nervous system, which controls not only our digestion, our respiration, our cardiac function, and all these kind of autopilot functions within the body, but we actually know that our autonomic nervous system and our vagus nerve are very intricately connected to our mental, emotional, and social health as well. And so dysautonomia simply means that the nervous system gets stuck in this fight or flight, sympathetic, protective, anxiety, hyperactivity response for too much. And if we're stuck on the gas pedal too much, too often, then our brake pedal, which is where we rest and sleep, we calm and regulate. The vagus nerve controls the brake pedal. It controls the parasympathetic system. So our teens have too much gas pedal, sympathetic fight or flight, and too little brake pedal. Now you may be thinking, my teen has no gas pedal left. My teen is constantly, all day, every day, exhausted. All they want to do is sleep. But yet they still are not rested. They still are not recharged. They are still not connected. Well, there's a what's called final stage of this dysautonomia, sympathetic dominance, nervous system dysregulation. And a child and anybody's brain and nervous system can only run on the gas pedal 24/7, 365 for weeks, months, years. And it can only run on the gas pedal for so long before you run out of gas. And so the final stage of nervous system dysregulation is not just stress and anxiety, not just focus and just kind of trouble paying attention, which is kind of the second stage revolution of this nervous system dysfunction, but you get to that third stage, which is absolute neurological exhaustion. All right, now let's shift from talking about the bad news, the challenge, the stats, the neurology, and the science. And let's shift to how do we find drug-free help for our kids? How do we find out if it's truly this nervous system exhaustion, dysregulation, dysautonomia? How do we find out if that is what's really underneath our kids, our teenagers, anxiety, depression, and current challenges? And the most important technology, the most important test, by the way, quick little sneak this in, it's really quite something that the medical system for decades now has said, oh, anxiety, ADHD, depression, those are chemical imbalances, and then they don't actually have a test to measure. If you think about the medical system, whether you have a disc injury in your back, a shoulder injury, gut issues, cortisol, probably not even cortisol necessarily, cholesterol and blood pressure issues. There's a blood pressure cuff, isn't there? There's blood work for cholesterol and triglycerides, isn't there? There's x-rays and MRIs for spinal degeneration. So everything in healthcare is supposed to be dependent upon running an exam first and finding the exact clinical dysfunction so that you can target the treatment. Now, we're not even having a treatment conversation. See, nervous system focused chiropractic and natural health, when you really approach it in this direction, we are not at all even close in this message talking about treatment or cure for anxiety and depression. That is how medicine tries to treat, medicine tries to cure. When the body gets better from what we call a more natural, inside-out nervous system focused, it's not a treatment, it's not a cure, it's taking care of the brain, of the nervous system, of the body, and getting it working better on its own so it can get away from the symptoms, because the brain and body of your teenager are designed to heal. And so when we look at our technology, we're not looking, so this HRV exam, by far and away, you're seeing it on the screen now. So looking at this HRV technology, it's the most important test you can absolutely positively do when your teen is struggling with challenges like anxiety and depression, but it's still not looking to treat it. What we're looking to find is this nervous system imbalance and exhaustion. So when we first start, so this is one of our teens who had and made tremendous strides with nervous system focused drug-free care. So these scans are over the course. This is June, this is August, and this comes up in September. So this is a very classic care plan. Again, I've got to just say it one more time. This is not a treatment plan inside a nervous system focused chiropractic office. That's not our approach. This is what we call a care plan. We're taking care of that kid's brain and nervous system, restoring function and regulation to it. And we can track this and measure this through HRV. And so this is over the course of about 3 to 4 months, which is about what it takes us during the course of again, this is average. Every kid is different based upon the severity, the chronicity, the level of dysfunction within their nervous system. That's why we run these scans. But the truth is, that is very classic, that in 30, 60, 90 days of getting adjusted, we see these teens just come out of this neurological exhaustion. We see them come out of that stuck sympathetic fight or flight response. We see them come out of this dysregulation and disconnection. And that is exactly what happened with this teen whose 3 series HRV scans you're seeing on the screen and on the iPad. So the very first one on the left is showing what's called sympathetic dominance. So here on the left, you have too much sympathetic dominance. That is the same as saying the parasympathetic vagus nerve brake pedal is shut down. So the nervous system shifts over here to the left. So we have a kiddo who is stuck in sympathetic dominance. That's a problem all on its own. That kicks out the anxiety, but not having the brake pedal, not having the ability to sleep, not having the ability to relax and regulate. That's really the issue within the issue. And then you'll see that this white dot, which is where their HRV, heart rate variability plots, they're also exhausted. They're below this middle line. No teenager should be low energy. Kids should have saved that for later on in life, right? When you're the parent of a teenager, trying to keep them as connected and regulated. And by the way, right now, I am the parent of 3 teenagers and a 10-year-old. And thankfully, through everything we're talking about in this message and everything we do with nervous system focused chiropractic, everything we do with staying active, getting outside, eating healthy, living a great lifestyle, we are so blessed to have 3 very awesomely regulated and connected teenagers. And that's where this kiddo needed to go. I'm going to switch over to a blue pen on this one, because now, just in about 2 months' time, we see this teen's HRV start to make its way into the green. Green is good. These scans are so easy to measure. Hey, this is why, root cause, actual neurology, not kind of halfway, half-baked science like the chemical imbalance theory is, but this HRV technology looks deeper. This is why this kiddo is struggling. Their HRV, their autonomic nervous system is completely exhausted, completely out of balance. And now, just this month or 2 of adjustments, what we do is we release the stuck sympathetic tension with some of our adjustments. We activate and stimulate the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic system. So you see that this kiddo scan is moving towards the green. Green is good. Green is balanced. Green is better energy. Green is better sleep. And now look where this teen ended up as they finished their initial 90 to 120 day, what we call care plan. And the nerd term on those care plans is what's called a neurological restoration plan. And that's what we're doing. Just one more time in closing, we're not treating or curing anxiety or depression or ADHD. Heck, if we're helping a teenager with a back issue and a shoulder challenge from sports, which again, a lot of times the more competitive they are in sports, the more they're struggling with anxiety and emotional challenges as well. Generally, this stuff is linked together through the nervous system, tension, dysregulation, and exhaustion. But none of it is a treatment. None of it is a cure. That's what makes chiropractic and natural health so different. We know that your kiddo's nervous system, your child's brain and body are designed to heal. They're designed to be balanced and regulated and resilient. They're designed to be healthy. They need to get their nervous system back in balance in order to do that. So the number one thing we recommend, if this message really resonates and lands with you, learn more. Go to our website and read the articles we have about anxiety and teen challenges. Go to the website for sure and learn more about this HRV and insight scan. There's 2 other scans that come with it, but especially in this anxiety conversation, heart rate variability is essential to finding out the real root cause of our kiddos and our own, by the way, challenges. And then we use that technology to continue to track progress, real, actual nervous system healing. See, even when medications are working, are they? And I'm not trying to be satire or sarcastic when I get into this conversation with folks, but when they say, hey, I've got ADHD and I take medication and it works great. Awesome. If it's working so great, stop taking it. Because if it's really working, it's actually fixing the root cause issue within the brain and the body, so you wouldn't be dependent upon it forever. See, that's the coolest thing about nervous system focused chiropractic. We're actually updating the software system within the brain and the body connection. We're improving actual nervous system function through our adjustments. We're not doing the healing. The adjustment isn't the fix. It's just getting this stress, this subluxation, this tension, this dysregulation out of the way of the nervous system and brain-body connection. And the brain is designed by God to heal and get better, and it wants to go back to balance, so it will. And we know exactly what adjustments, what protocols, what things need to do. So what we want you to do is learn more. Go to our website, read all the articles, read all the research. Go to our website, check out the HRV technology, learn more about this, and go to our website and check out the tab, and we'll put it in here, about the clinical process and how we dig deep into your child's case history. And we don't just chase symptoms, how we do a full neurological exam, and we don't just blame serotonin and dopamine. They work for the nervous system. We have to find the nervous system dysfunction and imbalance, and then we have found the actual root cause of the chemical imbalance. It's a true theory. It's just incomplete. It's not the whole story. And I feel like parents today especially have known this all along. When our kids are struggling and we go into the traditional medical system, we know we're not going to get full and complete answers. And then also when we go on our own and we're working on diet changes and all these different natural health lifestyle things, that is amazing. That needs to be done. But what if your kid's nervous system is so depleted, so dysregulated that you can't get them to do anything? Well, the coolest thing in closing about chiropractic care is they don't have to do anything. They just got to show up at the office, lay down on the table, and get adjusted. And the adjustment does the work for the nervous system, and the nervous system does the work for the body and the brain, and it activates and it stimulates and it catalyzes the healing from the inside out naturally without drugs on its own. Now your child sleeps better. Now their digestion works better. Now their body and connection is working better. Now they have better sleep. They have more energy. They have more connection. And guess what? They get more active. They put the phone down more of the time. They make better diet and lifestyle choices. They're more social and communicative. So the coolest thing about chiropractic that I always tell our teen patients and our families is it's not the end all be all, but it's absolutely the foundation of getting kids healthy. And it kind of creates this cheat code to get your teen to be healthy again. I find it all the time with my teens. The moment I adjust them, they're more connected, they're more energized, they're more relaxed while also being energized. So they go outside and they make healthier choices. When their nervous systems are stressed and subluxated and dysregulated, we're all the same. We make terrible life choices. We don't sleep well. We eat more carbs and more sugar and more crap. So if you want your child's entire lifestyle to change, you probably need to start changing their nervous system first. Just take 90, some kids, maybe it's 6 to 8 months if they're a little bit deeper locked in and we're dealing with POTS and other sort of things to go along with the anxiety. But speaking of time, I've gone long enough into this one to really, really give you the truth, the science, and the way out of that teen or child or even adult storm, anxiety, depression, emotional dysregulation storm. It's a nervous system problem before it's a chemical problem. And nervous system focused chiropractic is the most foundational, transformative, quality of life improving thing that you can really do for your kiddo. Again, not as a treatment, not as a cure, but to actually get after the root cause. We cannot wait to help serve your family. Anything and everything you need, put a comment below, send us a DM, check out the links to the articles and the other information we talked about with this one. And I cannot wait to hear the miracle stories of your teen going from struggling and anxiety and exhaustion and depression back to full life and taking on all the awesomeness that life has to offer. Because those teen years, those high school and college years should absolutely be the best. That's what your kid deserves. That's what your family deserves. And I so hope we get a chance to help your family get your kiddo all the way back to that.